Coors Light presents Call the Coach live from Ruby Tuesday in the Honolulu Shopping Center. Now, here's your host, Bobby Curran on ESPN 1420 and the Sideline Hawaii app.
Good evening and welcome to our first Call the Coach for Rainbow Warrior basketball with head coach Eran Ganot. I want to explain something because there's been some misunderstanding about this. People are saying, well, I hear there's only two basketball Call the Coaches. While that's true, it is not because Eran doesn't love you and doesn't want to be here. It's because the class schedules this semester are so late for the players, for some of the players, that they have to practice on Monday, Tuesdays in the evening. And those are our Call the Coach opportunity nights. So the 2 days that he was able to clear are holidays, this one, and the second one is in February. I think it's President's Day,
right?
I want to say. Those are the only 2 days that could clear that didn't conflict with player schedules and practice. So we have to enjoy Eran while we have him. And who knows, maybe when we get to tournament time, we may be able to squeeze another one in.
And hopefully in the future we can start doing some in the non-conference portion as well.
I would really like to do that. Of course, you know what we run up against then. We won't say it, the dreaded F word.
We'll make it work.
Football, that is, by the way. Okay, yeah. I mean, we love football, but I mean, we'd like to get a basketball. And I don't mind if we end up doing basketball Monday and football Tuesday. I don't have any problem with that. I don't know why anyone would.
That'd be great.
More the merrier. Okay, this is a little bit of housekeeping. This is interesting stuff. Because there is, not only is Wednesday night against UC Irvine superhero night, and by the way, the Saturday game against UC Davis is pink night. So everybody wears something pink on Saturday night. But this is a little extra on this one. You know about the tunnel experience where all the kids get to come down and players run through the kids' tunnel. Okay, this is a little different. This tunnel experience is basically for what they're calling long-time seniors. This is for people, if you were a ticket holder at the Blaisdell, if you've been following Rainbow Warrior basketball and you are now an adult, you are invited to be part. It's adults only. This one is adults only at the tunnel experience. I think this is going to be a hoot. It'll be a lot of fun and hopefully an extra reason to come, bring a couple of friends, and make a night out of it on Wednesday.
There's nothing better than leaving the locker room and going through that tunnel, and I expect it to be just the same as this senior group as the kids.
I don't see any reason it wouldn't.
Put that out there for those guys, have that same kind of energy.
There you go. We're going to talk a little Rainbow Warrior basketball. The team right now is, we talk about the schedule and the records. I am much more interested in records are important, of course, but I'm way more interested. I think you are too. Where are we at? Where is the team at? How are they playing? Where are they in terms of the integration of new players? Where are they offensively, defensively? Are they taking care of the ball? Will they D up on people? All those things, I think, are what you strive for during the season. Now, the record, 11-6, is the record. And I'm trying to think now. You're 2-1 in conference. You know what? That's not too shabby. That's a pretty good record. 11-6, considering the schedule, I think is okay. Obviously, you'd love to have another win or two, but 11-6 is okay. 2-1 in the conference, and now we're on the cusp of a 4-game homestand against probably the top 4 preseason, the top 4 teams in the conference. Whether you might have had Hawaii in that 4, but if you didn't, these are the other 4.
Yeah, no, I think to answer kind of what you were saying, I think we're improving. I think it's always tough to talk after a loss, obviously, because I always think that's who you are, what you've done today and most recently. But we have perspective always comes in. We've won 7 of 8, and then we lost that last game and had a couple possessions. Could have gone the other way for us. We talked about chipping away in terms of taking care of the ball. We've been tremendous on the road to turn it over 7 times and 9 times. To score and be so efficient offensively like we've been, and we haven't lost the board since UNLV. So I think at the end of the day, though, all the stats, all the numbers in the last game, you'd shoot like we did, you rebound like we did, you take care of the ball like you did. You must have been really deficient in one area, and I think I talked it earlier with some of the guys here. we didn't defend the three really well, and that's what can happen. That's a credit to Riverside and something we can work from and learn from. But I do think this group's been playing well of late.
It was my impression during the game, and I know it was not yours, at least immediately after the game. I felt like they made 13 threes. My guess was 9 of them those guys made over a hard hand. I mean, those were pretty well. At one time, Drew Buggs actually ended up getting called for a foul. I mean, I thought you guys had hands up. I didn't think it was like, okay, no one got over and a guy was standing all by himself. It really wasn't that, at least on at least 9 out of 13.
Well, our defense is about dictating what the shots we're going to give up. And, I think sometimes when you have some lapses, we didn't have as many as I thought. When you see the ball goes in, and I want our mentality of our team to be always, what can we do better? I don't want to say, oh, they made tough shots, what can you do? I think we can always do something to make that harder. But, I think after guys get loose with some lapses, they start to feel comfortable and they start to make some of these tough shots. But I think when you give up that many, 13 is a lot. I think even at the end of the Northridge game, we contested Gomez on some bombs, and he made them, and he
was shooting it straight up at one point. I mean, I was like, "Are you trying to hit the ceiling, buddy?"
And they were, and it speaks a little bit to the, look at the guard play or some of these prolific scorers we have in our league. We just started off with Allman and Ahmad and Fullerton, went to Gomez and Janae, who's they're 2 of the best scorers in the country, and then obviously what you saw with Dikembe Martin and Elkes, who was on fire.
Well, Elkes just had a career night.
It's going to keep going though, and that's great. It's a challenge you want we talked to our guys about wanting that challenge as a team, wanting those matchups as players. You've got an Irvine crew that's very experienced coming in. You're going to TJ Shorts. It just keeps going. So that's a credit to this league and those guys.
All right, let's talk a little bit. I had Adam Jacobson was on the program this morning. I don't know if you heard him, but I've
heard him enough.
You hear him enough all the time.
All the time, yeah.
We were talking a little bit about I'm just wondering because they're going to feel – certainly David Patrick felt like they were better off in zone against you because, frankly, you guys were torturing them early on in man. And then they went to zone, and they decided, okay, these guys are kind of throwing it around the perimeter. We feel more comfortable with that than what they were doing to us otherwise, and they stayed in the zone.
Yeah, and you know what? I said after the game, and I still do believe that we were effective against the zone. We shot over 50-plus in both halves. Maybe, if anything, they took us away from the three. They did maybe take some more clock. I think they were able to kind of stimmy some things early before we figured some things out. But I do think we've seen it a little bit, just a lot, obviously against Alabama A&M, and we've worked on some things to get more action, to continue to be aggressive. I wish, sometimes what a zone can do to you is to get you to crawl the ball up the court. And we had great pace early in pushing it. We did a good job against the half court, but we lost our transition, if anything, and that's something we can work on.
One of the things, and I don't know if this is an adjustment because this is not typically part of your zone, but you guys got Jack Purchase kind of running the foul line, between the elbows. And they didn't adjust to it very well. He was 6 of 6 on those 15 to 17-foot jumpers. He just wore it out. He almost won that game by himself at one point. Mm-hmm. You never win it by yourself. But I'm saying, right. But in terms of his ability to do something that they were struggling to defend, you guys that was a hell of an adjustment.
Yeah, I know, and he's prolific there, and he's gotten really good there, and he's got a lot of flexibility we give him as an experienced guy, as a guy who can obviously shoot, but we've always talked about his ability to pass, his ability to his size. He can shoot over the top in the zone really easily. All those shots obviously went in and it felt good leaving his hands. He found a crease in the corner. We give him the flexibility to read. We got 2 experienced point guards. And then when Eddie's out there as well, he may not have had as great a game as for his standards, but he opened it up for other guys. Those guys locked in on our shooters, and it left Jack, obviously in the middle of that zone, which is always where you want to get to.
One of the things, and I don't know how much of this is Jack and how much you guys made to say, listen, Jack, this is going to be open in the middle. Is it a combination? Does he sometimes come with that on his own?
With some of the things we do in man or zone, there's some flexibility in reads. And after years, it's like Drew Buggs and ball screens. He's as experienced a guy now, even though he's a sophomore, at reading a slip, a switch, a hard show, a flat show, a trap. And I think some of that now in basketball becomes a game of reads. So they're afforded, they understand where the gaps could be, and now their ability to make plays. But look, those guys, I think we do a good job, but players always make coaches look pretty good. So I don't know if I want to steal Jack's credit. I thought he did a great job.
Well, he did, but obviously, listen, and you talk about this over and over again, it's a team effort. I think in this case, because in my opinion, while we have good players, we don't have the kind of guys on this team where people are saying that kid's going to be in the NBA. That's not what we have. What we have are really good basketball players that need to be smart and attentive and aggressive if they're going to get the best out of themselves.
And they're getting better, and I think that's why it's fun to watch them grow and develop. But I think everything's about, like we talked, there's no difference between man and zone in terms of how important spacing is. You know, if Zigmar is in our big seal inside, that opens up. Those guys have to honor that. We don't want one guy guarding two guys.
Yeah.
So if guys aren't in the right space, aren't good, and you have the combination, it's just like our man. Why can Drew get in the paint at times? Because they're shooting around him. There's a four-man like Jack who can pass and shoot, and Zigmar is working his tail off to find the creases. So, and on top of that, now you got Drew and Brock who are really experienced at reading those and making the right decisions, and it's fun to watch. But we need to continue to evolve there.
And let's get to Irvine in particular, because this is a guy, I mean, for those that don't remember the story, there was a time, I know you were an assistant. I don't know if Russell Turner was already the head coach at Irvine, but you guys were traveling throughout, you know, I don't know, the Balkans or something. I mean, it was somewhere, was it? Yeah, it was somewhere in sort of the eastern portion of Western
He was
Europe.
The driver. I was just hanging out, which was great.
That was easy.
He had to find where we were going.
But you got to know him pretty well.
Yeah, you know, he's close with Randy Bennett, and so I think there's respect there. And, you know, he worked with John Montgomery's dad, Mike at Stanford, so he's been in the Bay Area. We were in the Bay Area for some time. But, yeah, we'd always talk on the road, but he knew I did a lot of international recruiting and went to those spots. And, you know, I was figuring out where, you know, I've driven myself in all those crazy areas.
Yeah.
And this time he offered it, and I said, heck yeah. So I got to kind of hang out.
Right.
He had the dirty work. And in the meantime, you know, talking hoops and stealing some ideas from him and not giving him any of what we do.
Well, you're trying. I mean, as best you can. What about when you guys are on? I mean, were you aware of which guys he was interested in, him being aware of who you wanted? And were they the same guys sometimes?
Sometimes, because I think we all do a lot of homework on the front end. And, you know, obviously recruiting for St. Mary's then. He was recruiting for Irvine. I think there were guys. We always have we always pretty much know the guys we should all be looking at
right.
better. But he was kind of following up on a commit he already had, which was, I think we talked about last year, would end up being Luke Nelson, which I was fine with since he wasn't going to be in our league until I came to Hawaii,
right.
which is a good thing. But I didn't know I'd be coaching against Luke Nelson. He was a heck of a player.
Is he playing professionally in Europe now?
Yeah, no,
I would have to think.
So.
Okay, we're gonna have to take a timeout. If you have a question or a comment, something you want to talk to Eran Ganot about, this is a good time to do it. 296-1420 is the number. We're at Ruby Tuesdays, Moanalua, and this is Call the Coach.
Back to Call the Coach, brought to you in part by No Foods of Hawaii and the HGEA on ESPN 1420.
Welcome back to our Monday edition of Call the Coach with Rainbow Warrior head coach Eran Ganot. We're getting ready to talk a little bit about Irvine. We'll get into that in some detail. But I just think it's interesting the way the schedule falls. It's Irvine Wednesday. Then UC Davis on Saturday, pink night, don't forget. And then next week, UC Davis, which is going to be around the Long Beach State, is going to be the Thursday. It's a Thursday, actually. And then Saturday, UC Santa Barbara. Those are the top teams in the conference. And then let's get this. After the UCSB on February 2nd to Saturday, by the way, Super Bowl Sunday is the next day, then is off on the road at Long Beach State, at Irvine. I mean, you get two of them right on the turnaround.
Yeah, the last couple of years they've done stuff where we played teams twice before we played a team once.
Yeah.
You know, and obviously we haven't seen Cal Poly yet, but you obviously you know your schedule. You try not to get too far ahead. These are obviously you talk about 4-game homestand, things like that, and against the good teams we're playing in a stretch. But I think we're taking one game at a time. I know it's easy to say, hard to do. And you've seen the scores in our league already, how close the games are, how hard fought they are. I think it's great.
Well, and by the way, I try to recognize people from the program when they come in. Director of Ops, Jesse Nakanishi, is here. We walked in. Terrific at his job. A pleasure to work with.
Good to see him on time.
And he's on time. It's all good. I don't know. Is he late, Chronic? Because I don't see him late much.
No, never, except for tonight. But
there you go. He's Johnny on the spot, or Jesse on the spot, as the case may be. All right. In terms of this, one of the things you talked about the guards. I think a guy you have to worry about there's two separate components to me with Irvine. It's the guards, and it's Evan Leonard at, I think, 25 against us last year late in the season, and
right.
then Worku. who is, I don't think he's great, but boy, he's capable of putting together a terrific game.
Well, I think why are they good? Why are teams good? They have a good inside-out attack. I mean, this is a team that's tops among the league, and every year it tops in the country up there in terms of defending and rebounding. But they have great experience. There are 5 or 6 teams in our league return 3 to 5 starters, and they were at the forefront of that, return all 5 starters. And, you know, you talk about Work, who is a really good player, and Max Hazard's make a jump.
Oh,
He's
man.
been one of their leading scorers.
Of course, yeah.
You know, inside Rutherford and you know, Galloway, the combination of those guys. You got Evan Leonard, and like you talked about, Robert Cartwright, a grad transfer from Stanford. So they have a team right now that's playing 10 guys double-digit minutes, very experienced, used to winning and doing what they do.
Well, and one of the guys you talked about, Galloway, Joey Galloway is the best shot blocker in the league. It's not close, in my opinion.
Yeah,
I mean,
he's trying to be a 3-time
Yeah.
Defensive Player of the Year. So
he's really good. And I've always liked Rutherford. First time I saw him, because he's so relentless around the basket. Now I'm hearing that his minutes have been somewhat down only because he gets in foul trouble.
Yeah, we've had some of those guys before.
I hear you.
Talking about Mike Thomas is
No
pretty
doubt.
good for his minute production. But, no, he's as good as it gets when he gets it around the rim and you leave him one-on-one. So I think we're going to have to throw some different things, different bodies at him. But like I said, they're good because they have an inside-outside balance. They have experience. They have shooting. And they do the important things in terms of defending and rebounding.
Now, this is the game, in my mind, because you guys have done, you mentioned you haven't been losing on the rebound battle since UNLV. You win the one on Wednesday, I'll think, okay, you guys are arriving, because they don't lose the rebound battle hardly ever.
Yeah, no, look, after UNLV, we played a really good rebound team in Colorado and in Rhode Island. And we've won the board so far in league, but this is a different entity and more like UNLV in terms of the depth and the size that they keep coming at you with. So I think when we've had success with them, that's been a big part of the game. They're coming off a game, mind you, against Northridge where they won the boards by 21 and had 26 offensive rebounds. You just don't see that very often.
No. And we won that battle against Northridge, but we didn't kill it.
No. And look, I think it's a big part of why they were able to withstand. You know, because Eran was down, 15 to 16 points, and then
in that game,
second half, yes, and then all of a sudden they were up 10. So I think that's the waves of the depth that they have. They can keep coming. They can do it in different ways.
Okay, that's what. And if you had to identify and prioritize, what's your biggest concern with Irvine?
Well, I think it's our ability to defend inside out because, like you said, and you saw it a little bit against Riverside with the size that they have. But when you have size and shooting, there's a dilemma there. So our ability to have great conviction and mix things up against them so they're not comfortable and a mentality that we can do it all, which is not easy to do in terms of helping our post at times and also getting out to shooters.
I think it's fair to say that Galloway, as good a defensive player as he is, he's not a guy that scares you offensively.
Well, he does in the sense that he gets them second-chance opportunities. And like I said, when you get 26 offensive rebounds, they had 36 points the other night just off second chance. And his ability to rebound on both ends, his ability to not only get them but also keep them alive is one of the better ones I've seen.
Well, let me get to, in terms of how you play them defensively. I mean, I'm sure you don't have to go think very hard before you come up with the matchups. I've usually been pretty good at guessing them. But I don't. Are they going to? Do you anticipate that they'll start Hazard?
Well, I think they have recently. But again, obviously Leonard back in there, and Cartwright has been starting for them, and Worku has obviously coming off a great game. I think he had an injury in the non-conference that he's working through, and obviously you can see his confidence coming back. But I think we start a certain way, but we do move guys around quite a bit in terms of their matchups.
Well, I think because who's going to take who. Hazard, actually, he has started every game. So, and I know he's the leading scorer, but it's pretty close between him and Leonard and Worku in the backcourt. And I don't know that there's much of a difference in terms of which of your guards you put on those guys. Do you have a preference? I mean, have you already decided who you're playing? Got to be careful because they might be here listening.
Yeah, and I'm normally careful anyway. So they'll know when we tip it off.
Right. Okay. I think I'll have a guess before that. Probably.
Yeah, but this year we've mixed some guys around, obviously, and I think they do play a three-guard lineup to start. Some teams play a big three. They will at times with Edgar when they move him to there. But look at their team, and you'll see 10 guys, averaging double-digit minutes, and I don't think anyone averaging over 30. So I think at times they will go with the hot hand. I think we're the other team, although in league we played guys a little bit more minutes, but there have been teams in our leagues that play guys 37, 38 to 40 minutes a game, and I think that's a strength of theirs for sure.
Well, interesting, because I don't think there's another team in the league that plays so many guys that many minutes. I mean, that's unheard of.
There's not, and they've continued that. And I think some years they've been that way. This year probably more than before. Obviously, they've added some good. Again, and that's part of with the amount of guys that they've returned. They've gotten some new. Welp has been a factor for him as a pick and pop shooting 4-man. So I think. That's where you can be down at half and they can try to wear you down. I think one of the keys too is our ability to stay fresh during the game.
Okay, now they're getting some texted questions, and let's start with these. This is one I even know the answer to this one. How many scholarships does men's basketball have?
Obviously, we have 13.
Right.
I think they're more asking maybe for how many do we have for next year. I answered the easy part, but we have 3 seniors and we have Josiah Villa coming back. So right now we have 2.
Okay, now that, because you just jumped a question, is the former Kahuku player on a church mission still intending to come to UH? And you kind of just answered that one.
That's where you're good, when you get ahead of it. What else you guys got?
Yeah. That's good, right? So he's ready next year. He comes in next year.
Yeah, he's finishes his mission, I believe, in June.
Good, terrific. And can he help?
Yeah, no, I think, and I've been fortunate. Our staff's coached guys, and it's always learning curve a little bit. See how guys are when they first come back from mission. You know, here we had, whether it's here or other places we've worked, I've seen both where guys are fired up, ready to roll. Some guys, there's a little adjustment period. I remember Hiram Thompson recently here. He had a little bit of an adjustment period. Yeah. I think, Josiah's a pretty locked-in, dialed-in kid, like all those guys are, and I look forward to work with him.
Okay. How's our recruiting in the Oakland area? Any grad or JC transfers on the horizon?
Good questions. I think we've done we only have 2, and I think we'd always want to sign guys early when we can. We're especially more so when we have big classes. I think you can tell and everybody's kind of adjusted their recruiting based on this grad transfer market a little bit. And look, we've been able to. When you have 5, I think we'll have closer to 5 for the following class. So that's a year we'll definitely want to sign several early. But when you have 2, you want to be smart about that. I think it's been good for us recently. We've gotten Jack Purchase in the spring, Eddie Stansberry, Gibson Johnson, Sharif Jermay, guys Noah Allen. So I think more than anything, though, I don't want to live off the spring. I just want to make sure we have balance. When you have 2, it's okay. When you have 5 the following year, we're going to need to sign some early. So
no question.
I think the Bay is NorCal. We've obviously. Eddie Stansberry is a good one who's in our program right now from San Francisco, NorCal area, and I think that's been one of our niches. Internationally, Australia, New Zealand, obviously the Bay and Southern California, which has been good to us. But the grad and transfer market is something that you'll wait and see a little bit, but I think we can get involved there and get a good one.
Okay, now, as I promised, I do mention when we have other luminaries here, our basketball sports information director, Neil Iwamoto, is here with his daughters that are running around with Z. They're here.
Did you call him a luminary?
Yeah.
What an honor.
Yeah, and UH basketball writer for the Star Advertiser, Stephen Sy, is in the house. For those of you that don't know what Stephen looks, Stephen, wave, papal wave, please. There you go. Oh, that's good. That was exactly like the Pope. That was perfect. Okay, can we update? Another question from the people that are texting in. Can we update upcoming schedules with Mountain West schools? Like, how about a home-and-home with Boise State, UNLV, and San Diego State?
Good question. I think it's been a priority. I think we have one close to committed for next year. We're going to try to get Mountain West every year, maybe and a couple more. Boise's actually in the Diamond Head Classic.
Oh, great.
So every year.
They've been good. They've been pretty good.
Yeah, they've been good. Obviously, we got one of our former guys, and Chris Acker there, and I think they're off to a good start in the league. So, and we obviously came out, played UNLV this year. But I think the WC schools, the Mountain West schools, Pac-12, which we played the last couple of years, I think that's been a focus area for us where we can get them on the way here to a tournament or a home-and-home, things of those nature.
And by the way, this is just a little by-the-by stuff. But Todd Okeson, who is the director of ops, he has moved on. He's at Nevada now, where he played. And apparently, on a last-second deal, Nevada beat Boise. And Chris Acker did not like it, so he went over and said something kind of nasty, in a friendly way. But he was
definitely a friendly way. Yeah, the Mountain West takes our guys. No, we're happy for them. I think we root hard for each other from afar. That was a tough game for our staff because you got tired.
Someone had to lose.
Yeah, and but we're very proud of those guys for sure.
We are going to take a quick timeout. You might have a question or a comment, or even, God forbid, a suggestion. Get it ready. Give us a call, 296-1420. We're at Ruby Tuesdays, and this is Call the Coach.
You're listening to Call the Coach, presented by Coors Light on ESPN 1420 and the Sideline Hawaii app.
Welcome back to Ruby Tuesdays in Honolulu. The inimitable Chris Hart giving things away today, which is one of his favorite things to do. We've got a couple of opportunities here for you to call if you have a question or a comment. In fact, if we can bring the mic, you're going to go ahead and bring that over. That's that gentleman right there in the gray. Is that a Lakers shirt he's wearing? Oh, tonight. Good luck. I don't know how that's going, but I know they're playing the Warriors tonight.
I'm going to the game on Sunday.
Wow, cool. Very cool. Without Lonzo and without LeBron. Good luck.
No, LeBron will be back.
Okay.
There you go.
Oh, you're getting all insider stuff. Go ahead.
All right, Coach, I just wanted to first of all say that I'm impressed how you've built the culture of how your team shares the ball and everything. Appreciate the way they always look for the open man and stuff. But a lot of sometimes, do you feel that they pass a little too much? The reason I ask is because I see, this is just from a fan's perspective, but I see like Drew Bugs passing up a lot of open looks. Do you sometimes feel that he should be more offensive minded or look for a shot a little more? Kind of like Jermaine or like Stansbury or Purchase, or just don't hesitate. Sometimes I feel that he has some open looks.
You think Stansbury doesn't hesitate?
No, he just fires away. But I like that.
I do too. I love it. I think it's a good question. I think that was something that happened a lot more last year, and you notice this year we don't. When that happens, we're not very good, individually or collectively. And then we play late shot clock. We haven't had many late shot clock possessions this year. Not that we don't want to be in those, but I think the guys have been more aggressive in those situations this year than the past. Jack and Eddie. Every good shot they got to let it rip. And they got to know that we have their backs on that. And I did think it's funny because even though he finished well in the first half against Riverside, Jack missed a couple looks, and then he passed on two that we work hard to get, and he can't do that. So I think Drew's mindset, I think even his involvement offensively, I think, point guards nowadays have to be better scorers there, and I think it's coming on for him. Obviously, we throw him in different spots. But I do think he plays to his strengths a little bit. And he's shooting better. He's up to 33% from three. He hit a big three for us late in that game. But he has more of a facilitating mindset. He leads obviously our league in assists right now. And so I love where he's at. I definitely want all of our guys to be aggressive and play to their strengths, if that makes sense, and look for the guys they need to look for. But Drew's, he's found a way to be more aggressive, but he's got to continue to work there for sure.
He's only a sophomore, and I really think that by next year he can, do some of the things that Bobbitt did, attack the basket. He's strong. He's a good defender for the most part, and if he can improve his consistency on his outside shot a little bit more, I think he can be effective like Bobbitt was.
You want a job as coach? I mean, that's pretty good. That was,
I
pretty much hit that. I would say I was.
Yeah,
pretty good summary of Drew Bugs.
But it's funny, people forget Drew is scoring about 8.5 a game. He's getting 5.5 assists a game. He's getting 5 rebounds a game. He's getting almost 2 steals a game. He does a lot of great things for our team. But to what you just alluded to is going to help him long term. Broad was about 8 or 9 a game as a junior. And the senior year for us, obviously, he was up to 13, 14 a game and had several 30-point games. You need score. Those positions now need to score. But I think Drew and Barad was a great passer. So both those guys, to see where Drew is at this early is impressive, and I'm excited what he has moving forward.
Okay, we got another question here. Good job on that. Who's the most improved player this year on offense or defense, or maybe it's the same guy on both? Who would you say?
Well, I mean, I think our guys get better. It's hard to argue there are many more improved players in our league than Zigmar's. I mean, the jump he's made, and I've said this all year, and it's been great to watch, from the transformation of his body to the experience he has from the last couple of years playing with Gibson and Mike, going against those guys, to then needing some breakthroughs, having those breakthroughs, and then to continue that stretch when teams, what happens when you're playing well is you move up the scout, and he continues to perform. And it's been something we've really needed. We have some young bigs right now, and so he's had to really step up. And those guys are getting, the luxury of learning from him and Jack. But I think there's guys who've gotten better. It's really hard to argue against the improvement of Zigmar. I think in the league.
And I just wanted to also mention, just a great guy. I mean, he's a terrific person. He's kind of a gentle guy off the court, but I just had to mention this. At the CSUN game, you might remember Ron Artest, Malice at the Palace. The guy, the NBA guy, went into the stands, clock guys, had a reputation for being a little crazy. His son plays on CSUN. And the son got into it, Zigmar's, and the kid got called for a flagrant. And the father's yelling out of the stands at Zigmar's. And Zigmar's just looked up and gave him the death stare. And I thought, Ron, I know you were a bad boy when you were 29. You're 50. Relax. You don't want to be tangling with Zigmar's.
Although I'll give the older Ron credit. He looks like he's ready to roll, too.
No, he may be, but, age, there's no beating Father Time.
No. Now, Zigmar's is you say a lot of good things. Why is he successful? It's because of the person he is.
Yeah.
Why are we tougher in some areas? I think our toughness starts with him.
Yeah, no question.
And he's physical. It's just been fun to watch. I don't know if there's anything better as a coach, and hopefully for the people who support our team, to watch teams develop and come together, or watch players improve during the course of it. And that's the luxury of when you have some guys who come in as freshmen.
Yeah. No, one of the things I like about Zigmar, the way I guess I would put that, is he's a tough guy without having any bully in him. Doesn't have that, but
he's under control.
If someone on that team needs to be protected, Zigmar's would be my choice.
Yeah, he'll be the first.
He'll be the first guy involved in getting someone apart or standing in between another one of his teammates in trouble. He's that guy.
Yep.
Let's get to some phone calls. We got Evan on the line. Hey, Evan, how are you?
Hi, Bobby.
Evan, go ahead. You're on with Coach. Okay, we got to move on from this call, guys. Thank you. Thanks for the call. We got Cam on the line. Hi, Cam.
Hey, Coach.
Hey.
You've had some transfers in the past couple of years that turned out to be really good. A couple of them stayed for a couple of years. Do we have an opportunity for some pretty good transfers to come here this year? And I'll take your answer off the air. Thank you.
I can't speak about anybody obviously specifically, but I think this is a great place that's had success with transfers. We have guys, obviously, when you talk about Noah Allen and Jack Purchase, and whether it's JC transfers, but I think we'll be in the mix for some good ones. And there's some already that's transferred that semester, obviously, and the last couple of years, it's just changed the recruiting game. 5-10 years ago, maybe you have 50 to 100. Now it's been in the 700 to 900 range. So. And there's some unknowns there until obviously things, in March. Some obviously had semester, but I think the combination of our success with those guys I think this is a great place for those guys and where our program's going, things that are happening. I think we'll be in the mix for sure.
Well, I just want to mention this because I look around the league and I think, if you're looking for a place to play, good guys in the program, positive culture, big time arena. I mean, let's face it. I mean, when I hear some guy going to, like, Riverside or going to Fullerton, I'm just saying, nothing wrong with those programs. I like the people there. The coaches are good. But, those are high school gyms. If you want to have the feeling that you're playing in a big-time place, I would have to think this would be top of mind, certainly in the Big West, and very competitive with anybody in the Mountain West.
Well, I don't have, obviously, a comment on the other schools. I have, obviously, great respect for them. I do think that, again, the history of what we've done with those guys and what we can do moving forward and what we have coming in, what we have coming back, I think it's been – what's tough is there's been a couple of years where we could have taken one or maybe at semester, but we haven't had the scholarship. Last year was the first year back to 13. And when you have 11, 12 you're operating with, or at least ahead of time, you've got to be careful having too many guys sitting out for you. But back to 13, and this year we didn't have one at semester, and there's been about 100 probably at least at semester. So it took us out of that game, unless those guys obviously finish forward. But there are going to be some guys we're going to be in the, and I think that's a way. You always want to develop. You want to have a balance between developing some freshmen, having some impact guys as grad transfers or JC transfers. Obviously, Saitama was another grad transfer. But then if you can, there's some guys who can transfer in that maybe a higher talent in respects that even with a sit-out year, they're a redshirt freshman is great too. But there are times where a guy who has experience and just needs a year to kind of get himself going again. Look at the emergence of Jack.
Yeah, good example. Because I mean, Jack has so improved from the time he walked in here till now. It's hard to believe almost.
Well, that and just getting his mojo going, his happiness going again. The year of getting comfortable, getting in shape, playing against Jenks and those guys. I think that's something we will. It's one of the niches. If you talk about the West Coast in terms of high school, the JC transfer, but not living off because you do want continuity in your program. The grad transfers, we've had two great ones here on no one's side, but I do think the sit-out transfer, if you can do it and have the scholarships, like I said, to have a guy who's a little older and experienced will help us.
One of the things, and this is where evaluation is so important, because with 13 scholars, back when it was 15, you had a little more latitude. You made a mistake, you could live with it. There's really not a lot of room for a mistake nowadays.
Well, everything's changed on recruiting with the combination of that and the transfer market. You got to think about it the other way too. And obviously, what we've inherited in terms of the APR, and we've done a great job with that. So we can't, you couldn't mess around. We couldn't. We had a scholarship and a postseason ban, all that nonsense, and at the same time you're managing this APR situation. But last 3 years we've been 952, 978, 1,000. I think we'll be close to that again. And so you're not dealing with that. You're back in so many areas where you could take maybe a situation like that, maybe two, because I think those are ways we can get some high-level talent that we can develop for that year they sit out, or in some cases the grad transfer, like I said.
Like Noah.
And look at the jump he made.
Good.
So, and he's doing a great job. Those guys all our guys. It's fun to watch them play overseas and continue their careers. Even the guys we weren't fortunate enough to coach, just Hawaii guys doing well.
We're going to take a quick timeout. If you have some questions or comments, get them ready. We'll be right back. We're at Ruby Tuesdays, Honolulu, and this is Call the Coach.
Thank you.
Back to Call the Coach, brought to you in part by No Foods of Hawaii and the HGEA on ESPN 1420.
Welcome back to Call the Coach at Ruby Tuesdays in Honolulu, and with head coach Eran Ganot. I had someone ask me that. I hate to do this to a guy, but one of the guys was asking, not about your last name, but he wanted to know. He goes, it's Ramo, right? I said, yeah. No, I couldn't do it to him. I said, no, it's Ramo.
Yeah.
Because they're asking, and I don't know why, because there's usually a pretty good guide in there.
Right.
And there is on ours, but he didn't know, and he had to. It was Richie Schuler. I couldn't do it to him.
Oh yeah, no, he better know it.
No, well, he should know it. But give the guy credit. He's checking just to be sure.
Rich,
Sometimes he's thorough, and he wants to know, and he wants to be right, which is important. Well, I want to get to this because we're not going to have a chance to do another one of these before we see some of these other opponents. So I think it'd be fun if you don't mind doing a little thumbnail. I know you're immersed with UC Irvine, but maybe you can just give us a little bit on some of the other teams we're going to play. Let's go with Jim Less's team, the Aggies of UC Davis. Tough start for them, wasn't it, a little bit?
Well, tough non-conference, but they're rounding into form. They've had a lot of close losses. The bottom line is this is a team that won the league without Chemi Maneke, and so everybody else from that team that ended up winning the league is back. And T.J. Shorts is the returning player of the year. They added shooting with Stephen Gonzalez, and they have Mooney's playing well of late. So you got, like I said, when you got a dynamic, competitive, one of the most competitive players in our league with shooting and a well-coached program.
Okay.
How's that for a thumbnail? Pretty good?
That's good. That's probably exactly what I'm looking for. So that's Saturday's game. That's Pink Night, by the way, after Superhero Night on Wednesday. And don't forget, don't be shy. Go be part of the Tunnel Experience on Wednesday. You can do it as a grown-up. Where else can grown-ups, when we were staying in for the Wooden Classic, and we stayed in an Anaheim Hilton, which, it's all Disney. Everyone's there. There's grown-ups wearing ears, and they keep saying it's the happiest place on earth. Well, I think Wednesday's Adult Tunnel Experience will be the happiest place in Hawaii.
You're saying where else can adults act like kids? Isn't that what you want?
There you go.
It's a great thing.
Oh, that's a good. I'm not suggesting otherwise. Okay, let's go to next week's games, because then it's an unusual 4-game home stand. The following Thursday, Dan Munson and Long Beach State come in. What can you tell us about them?
Well, Booker is the forefront there in terms of improvement. I mean, obviously he was a 10-a-game guy last year. I think he's 15 to 20 this year and has several 30-point games. Yusuf's been hurt recently. But they have great experience. They Brian Alberts, who was the grad transfer, the rare two-year grad transfer, so he's picked it up. They beat Irvine, I believe, at Irvine. If I'm not mistaken, they had a big win. So I think they always have one of the tougher schedules, but I think the combination of the experienced backcourt and Yusuf, I believe, will be back in there. There's some guys.
And then the last game, and it's going to be a week from Saturday, is UC Santa Barbara. I keep seeing their little blips on the game. It's always guys I've never heard of. I thought Heidegger. There's some of the guys I'm familiar with. The guys who keep getting written up, or they must have been red shirts, or they're new guys.
Well, they had the combination even the year before of grad transfers and transfers. They return Heidegger, but they have a freshman in there, Amadou Sow, who's done a great job being an impact rebounder, athletic. He's had some breakout games, but they have 4 dynamic scoring guards. We talked about scoring guards. They have 4 of them with Heidegger, who was a little hurt early. They've obviously been one of the best teams in non-conference, off to a good start in conference. But Heidegger and Armand Davis, the transfer from Alabama, has been an impact player. McLaughlin, the transfer from Oregon State, who sat out. So I think the combination of those guys makes them a threat, and obviously they're off to a great start.
They are off to a really good start, and some people actually think that they could win this league. They're the best record in the conference. They're 14-3 overall. They're a perfect 3-0 in conference. So they clearly are a team to be reckoned with.
Yeah, and you look at that. Look, we try to talk about defending and rebounding. Right now, the best 3 rebounding teams, we're third. But the number 1 and 2 are Irvine and Santa Barbara. I think that has a lot to do with that. When we won the league, we were first defensively, first on the board. So where you get back to.
Okay. Now, so I just want to encourage anybody. There's a deal here. I don't know why this exactly happens, but the usual schedule, and that is that what I'm going to talk about is that a lot of fans here sort of wait. Not mostly the people that are in this room here, because these are hardcores right here. But the kind of P2, what we call in radio P2s, the ones who are casual fans, they usually start coming at the Diamond Head. This year was unusual because of football. Diamond Head was day games. So it was tough. It got to a little bit of I thought the Diamond Head went really well. You guys 2-1 in that, and against a couple of good teams. But then, the conference, we only had one so far at home, and that was CS Fullerton. Now it's time. So if you're hearing me right now, please come down. It's going to be fun anyway on Superhero Night to see UC Irvine, and they're good.
Yeah, look, we've had a couple Wednesday games. We've had these Diamond Head earlier games. We've been on the road for a 10-day trip at one point. But these guys are giving everything. They've performed so far. I wish we had the last game back. We didn't. They're playing their tails off. They're sharing the ball. They're shooting the ball really well. We've had some emerging guys like Eddie Stansberry. I think the best is yet to come. And you got the combination of that and great teams coming in. Our first year, I remember where it was like 5,000-6,000, and then it went from in league, and it helps us. It's a huge factor. We got to create a big-time home court atmosphere here because it will continue to. Obviously, our guys appreciate it, but it's got to be hostile for the opponents, and it's an electric atmosphere when it's like that here.
All right, now we didn't get the new coach thing except for David Patrick at Riverside, but
and Gottfried, yep.
Yeah, and Mark Gottfried, but he seems like he's been around since the flood. Granted, at other programs. Because he was at Alabama and NC State. Where was he before?
Murray
State before that. So I think when now you have, and the guy who is at UCSB, who was the assistant at Arizona.
Joe Pasternak, yep.
And you know him fairly. Of all these guys, which of the coaches do you know the best?
Well, obviously David Patrick and I worked together, and he came the year after my first stint, and then I came back. We worked together for about 5 or 6 months before he went to the Rockets. But, that tree is always close, and he obviously gets along real well and things like that. But, those are the coaches at this point as you get, assistants, the head coaches. But obviously, to answer that question, DP is the one I've worked with before.
Yeah. Now, and so some of the guys you're relatively new with, like Pasternak, for example.
Well, Pasternak was at Cal when I first, again, when you're at St. Mary's for 8 years, Russ Turner's over there and Pasternak's here. And Jim Les, obviously, great respect for. I just think the coaches all know each other.
Yeah, and I think it's actually a pretty good bunch of coaches in the Big West, don't you?
I have great respect for the programs here and the coaches, and I think the continuity has helped, and what a lot of those guys are doing is impressive. It'll help our league.
All right, now if we had to do one more thing, you talked about, and one of the important things is the grades, and you just said a few minutes ago that you thought you guys would be pretty close to 1,000. So I'm guessing when the grades came out from the fall, They were fairly impressive.
Yeah, all the guys were good this semester.
Every single guy. Don't you love that?
Well, I think I think we want achievers, guys who compete in all walks, on the court, off the court, in the classroom. They're tremendous in the community. Be around our guys. They're awesome. They're studs. They're special. They're a great group of young men, and they really look out for each other, and they really take pride in wearing the H and being pillars in the community. And I think that translates on the floor. This is a team that plays that way. I think you can tell a lot about people with the way they play. They play like a team on both ends. So I think that's the expectation. We're not sitting there panicking at night with how guys are doing
or what they're doing.
Right. No, if we're doing that, we're never going to be any good, and we don't deserve to be any good. And that's kind of the message on the front end.
You know, I think that the culture building thing, you mentioned Chima Maneki. I mean, this is a great player. That was for UC Davis and wasn't available to them for more than half the year last year. I mean, it happens, and I have no idea what the particulars were, except that it's kind of tragic when a kid with so much ability suddenly is essentially out of the program.
Well, you see it all the time, and you know the concern is it could happen here because whether it's stuff like that on the court, off the court, it's guys transferring for various reasons. It's really tough, and so you got to make sure you bring in the right guys, and then as they're with you, not just developing them as players but as people, understanding the importance of what it means to be here, desire to want to be here. You got to want people to want to be here because the whole rolling. The revolver, the revolving door with people in and out. I don't know how you have a chance to be good here and there, but you'll never have a chance to be special. And if you don't have a chance to be special, what's the point?
We are flat at, doesn't it fly? We are flat out of time. I want to thank everybody who came tonight. Don't forget, Tunnel Experience Adults tomorrow night, or rather Wednesday night, and it is also Superhero Night, Pink Night on Saturday. For all of us, for Eran Ganot and all of us at ESPN, I'm